Hello, Rachel.
Hello, Ryan.
How are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Oh, I am actually very happy. And it's because of an aspect of...
Byron's here.
Well, no, that wasn't the aspect of the B5 episode that filled me with joy and delight, but Kim Strauss as the Drazi ambassador was here, and it made me happy. It feels like it's been a little bit of time since we've had Kim Strauss in B5.
Yeah.
I haven't double-checked when the last time we saw him was, but just to see him be the Drazi and go full mode in that, I was smiling from ear to ear, and we're not even talking about him in the spotlight for this episode, but he just made me real happy doing the shtick he does as the Drazi. I just love that guy. He's just such a little freak. But Rachel, we are here to do some stuff, aren't we?
Yeah, we are.
And how are you doing overall? Are you ecstatic to talk about Byron since you just couldn't keep him out of your mouth?
I am excited to talk about Byron.
Would you say we're closer than sisters?
Ryan.
Ryan.
We are closer than me and my sister, so yeah.
Ryan and Rachel, closer than sisters. But
I'm uncomfortable.
That's how Byron wants you to be, uncomfortable. Now sit. No, not like that. Kick the chair out from under you as you try to sit down, and then blame you for not accepting the correct way of saying sit down, which is please sit down, sit down, please.
You didn't ask me, you commanded me.
I did give you a command. What, you a little pet? The Yum Yum Pet? Here on Yum Yum 5, we talk about episodes of Babylon 5 from the rewatch perspective. Rachel and I are a husband and wife team going through episodes of science fiction television one at a time. We are called Yum Yum because of Star Trek Discovery, a series near and very dear to our hearts because of this particular moment in which, yes, Academy Award-winning actress Michelle Yeoh plays a cartoon villain, and she turns over to another cartoon character and asks them the very simple question of, hey, do you want to help me kill and or hurt the antagonist of the season? And the wacky lady that is not played by Academy Award-winning actress Michelle Yeoh, and might I say, Michelle Yeoh won that award literally as soon as she stopped doing Discovery. I don't know if there's a correlation there, but something's happening. But this lady licked her lips sexily, threw her hair back, and replied to Academy Award winner Michelle Yeoh with "Yum Yum." What a sequence that is! And Rachel, we've literally had to explain this over 100 times, maybe even nearing 200 times and or more. And I just want to...
I would stop if I had a choice.
And I was just going to ask you, does it feel any better or worse than when that moment happened?
Yeah, you know what? It just feels different.
It's
not better or worse. It's just different.
You can't measure it. It's like the Yum Yum energy. Only fine experts in the field of that can do it, and we aren't experts in that particular Yum Yum strand just yet. I think we have to hit describing it 1,000 times to really know if it is more impactful than the moment itself. But let's talk about an episode of Babylon 5, and we are up to the 3rd episode of Season 5. Rachel, you are going to read for us right now the DVD description of this particular episode, which is called, what is it called again? I feel like it's Shakespearean in title.
The Paragon of Animals.
Yumlings, that's you, the people who listen. Take a bet of which character dropped that phrase as if it was just natural to do. No, it wasn't Sheridan. Oh, incorrect. Lou Welch isn't in this show anymore. Zach Allen? He's too much of a man's man to know Shakespeare. It was Byron. Do you remember that? But Rachel, please read the
really
DVD
thought
description.
It was going to be Jakar.
It could have been, but he doesn't know Shakespeare.
No, but he writes.
But he also gets spelling mistakes in there.
You've misspelled. There's no Y in liberties.
Oh, go away. Repress someone else.
As you wish.
let's stop waiting on the edge of our seat and let's hear what JMS
If not
wrote.
by force of reason, perhaps by force of arms. When several groups refuse to sign the Declaration of Principles, Sheridan uses the White Star Fleet to gain a new respect for the fledgling alliance.
Fledging. I want to just say that this was a very difficult episode to determine the person that had YYE, Yum Yum energy. This is a cast of characters played by some magnificent actors in an episode that is both fairly lifeless in energy and yet bubbling with it to a degree in which I say turn down the heat.
It's on a boil. It's not boiling over. Maybe closer to a simmer.
I am going to go with a wild card option. Someone that you do not expect me to say when you sit down and watch Paragon of Animals. His name is President John Sheridan.
I had a feeling you were going to go for John.
Look, Byron has it aggressively, but his is more cultish vibes in his way of saying yum yum. It doesn't feel natural in the way that it does out of Jakar. But Jakar was almost pitching too hard to say yum yum. And that's the thing about yum yum. It was a surprise. It was unnatural, yet it was shocking. But Jakar, at this point, in this particular way he was arched in the story, he was just looking at us saying, give it to me. I'm going to
he was trying too hard for the yum yum. So I also feel the need to overlook him because he was being a bit too try-hardy.
A real drama queen. And although Commander Nandi is a queen of drama, she is not a drama queen when she said yum yum. She said that breathily, sexily, and unnaturally, but also naturally. It's a weird concoction. But John Sheridan in this episode, Bruce Boxleitner got to do the Londo impression, and that there in itself is already a feat. But skip forward to him just like a little piss baby with his feet up on the desk, looking at these little scrolls in front of him with a real shit-eating grin and pout at the same time. That's a man who wants to say yum yum, but JMS won't let him. So are you a John Sheridan stan here, or is there someone else in the mix?
I do second Sheridan. But would you like me to offer my own choice as well?
Yes, please.
You know what? Let me just copy your answers.
You're a teacher. You know that's wrong.
Yeah, but sometimes it's just the right answer.
Do you genuinely think it's John?
Yeah.
Was that your person?
Yeah, I was leaning towards John. Like, Jakar is the obvious choice. Sheridan gave me plenty of YYE. Especially when he's having that thing of like, and Delenn wants to throttle them. That's a lot for her.
I also want to...
whatever he says.
I also want to shout out Garibaldi.
Yes,
He had his moments.
Again, you steal my answers!
Because we are the same. That's marriage.
Fuck off.
No, thank you. I want to stay here and talk to you
No,
about the Paragon of Animals. Rachel, the 5th season, we have said very much so, is divisive. It has its reputation.
Yeah, we have not ignored that.
And the first 2 episodes have given us a glimpse into the great side of it and the weaker side of it. And this one is more of a glimpse, if not us plunging into the warm waters of mediocrity that many people get out of season 5. I have never disliked season 5. I've always been an actual fan of it, as some of my favorite episodes, but there is a sense of malaise in season 5's earlier stretches. And it's hard for me to separate if it's because of Byron, because I do not like him and he is such a weird presence in the series. But my history with this particular episode overall is I find it quaint. That's how I always think of it. It's very quaint. It's very simple. to the point of being simplistic. I think of these rinky-dink little aliens in their bunker overacting to the camera. And I say this with authority as somebody who has watched Crusade, but that image of those aliens in their little bunker looking at the stars, begging for help, that kind of what it captures there is what I think of when I think of Crusade.
Okay.
Because Crusade is like Star Trek in a way where a ship goes to the place and there's a planet and they go down to the planet and there's some fucking weird problem they have to solve. That's a good portion of Crusade, but there's just something
it's like
tonally...
if the Ranger came with a crew.
Yes, and if they were a techno mage, but there's just something tonally in season 5 that goes into what Crusade becomes, and this episode reeks of that. But in my past, I have not liked this one. It's just been one where I shrug and go, that happened. It was very small scale, which isn't a bad thing in itself.
And it's definitely something that season 5 leans into overall.
So that it can build itself up to the big stakes again. It's a pendulum swinging act. But what about you, the Paragon of Animals? Has this one stuck in the brain? What's been your opinion on it?
I remember it's one that I vaguely remember. I'm like, oh yeah, they do a whole episode that's about the Declaration of Principles. And it turns out that the Drazi are jerks.
What a shock.
Like, what do you mean? They're good guys. They were a part of the non-league worlds for so long.
They did almost commit genocide against one another because of the color of their scarves. So there's that to consider.
That's part of their culture.
Oh, yes, of course. And so is what they're doing here, apparently.
Yeah.
So you can't legislate morality.
They've got a system. It's fine. For them. It's worked out pretty well for them for the last 10 years or whatever they say it is. And then I'm like, oh yeah, it really is a whole episode about that. That's fine. That's my history.
I get remnants of the season 2 episodes that we found lackluster, like They're All the Honor Lies and Hunter Prey, where the premise of an episode exists. It's not offensively bad, but it's not wowing in its quality either. And you're being pushed along because of the themes and the characters.
Yeah. I do remember that about this episode of the actors are having fun being their characters.
The story, as we've circled around and touched on, is the Interstellar Alliance is trying to get all of these different groups to sign the Declaration of Principles. That is how we frame everything. Everything keeps coming back to that. It all feeds into it because they need a reassurance of things actually changing. We can't just be this think tank group. We can't just be this organization that comes in with good intentions but doesn't actually follow through on change.
Store.
Yes, we can't just be a tech store. We need affirmative action, and one that holds everyone accountable to a certain set of ideals that this organization is driving towards. But since this is made up of so many different races with so many different agendas, the conflict is obvious. There are people who will not want to sign up because it goes against their values or it impedes their wants and needs and desires.
Or it's an insult that you would even ask.
Yes, and the Drazi are the troublemakers, as is usual when it comes to the League of Non-Aligned Worlds. The Drazi are always at the forefront of that particular group, and they argue that you cannot legislate morality, Sheridan. It is not your right to do that, and you don't know us. We fought alongside you. We've helped you out from time to time. You've helped us out. but how much do you actually know any of us and what we stand for? You look at us as children that needs to be wrangled, and then the episode proceeds to be about Sheridan looking at them like children who need to be wrangled in, and he has to consult the others. He has to talk to Delenn and Jakar, and Garibaldi is of significance. And I also want to praise this episode. Now, I talked about that this has not been a favorite in my recollections, but I actually rather enjoyed it a lot more on this watch because it went back into what I really adore about Babylon 5 and really, really attached myself into in that first season, which is the courtroom politics. We're in the council chambers. We're having people speechifying and banging gavels and talking about this legislation and this principle here and what are the things that happens, and if we do this, then this is going to happen, and the chain events. I get a kick out of that stuff. Babylon 5 had to take a bit of pause from that to focus on espionage and war and intrigue and cosmic events, but I really love Season 5 for honing back in on the governing side of being on Babylon 5. And so the Interstellar Alliance being this newly formed thing, from a narrative perspective, you have to focus on such things as the signing of the Declaration of Principles, which you could easily skip over in another narrative, but it's so Babylon 5 to say, no, this is the whole episode.
Yeah.
Because
this is what we're here for.
What does the Interstellar Alliance mean?
Yeah.
You just say that word and you just have Delenn give a little speech at the end of last season, and it is this nebulous good force, and we see in Deconstruction of Falling Stars how it reaches out for centuries to come. But what does it actually mean? How do you actually create that? Here's an episode all about that very thing, and the fact is, people are people. Whether they're Drazi, whether they're Pakmar, whether they're Centauri,
as we call it,
they
emanates the universe.
They will fight tooth and nail for things to remain the same, whilst also wanting change.
As long as it benefits them, they don't want it to change.
So what do you think about this? Because it feels like it's been a while since we've had to talk about this style of bureaucracy and legislation and government-y stuff as a central plot point in a Babylon 5 episode.
Yeah, it's nice to return to the politics of our space politics opera.
And when it comes to the arguments that are held in the council chambers, do you have any takes on it? Do you have any thoughts on what are the things that are being chewed on in the episode?
I think you can what's the phrase?
Legislate morality.
You can legislate morality. In fact, it's a lot of what our laws do. But because they've been enshrined so long, we don't see them that way. For a long time, we didn't have these structures that said, no, you're not allowed to murder, even if you think it's justified, right? And we said that is acceptable, that's not acceptable. That's what laws are a lot of the time. So we will accept this, we will not accept this. This is in this category, this kicks it up to this notch, right? So I get what they mean about it being a declaration of principles, because principles are meant to be individual and matter. But you also sign away some of those things when you join a group. There are certain things that I will lose my job and my career if I did.
Oh, yes. Same here. And now imagine that on a national scale or international scale. You can't just join the UN and then commit an atrocity in your own country and expect that nothing will happen. I mean,
No.
Probably nothing will happen because the UN's But
we have our criticisms of the UN as uninformed people.
Yes, or you inform people. So, yes. Oh, yeah, baby. I did it. I'm so proud.
I'm not trying to tell you how to run your empire. Hell, I can hardly even organize my socks. But this alliance of yours is at a very critical stage. It's still an infant, and it's going to stand or fall depending upon what you do over the next 6 months.
All of this politicking is happening, and we have Jakar being the air of comedy to help lighten the load, which that is what Babylon 5 is really adept at, is giving us the nitty-gritty details that could verge on being dry and boring, and possibly is for some, and then offsetting it with some levity and some comedy while still giving us insight and wisdom that is true to the character. And I think that with five seasons in, this series has it to a fine art of giving us the shifts of serious and funny. And I really liked Jakar in this episode as the writer and artist who's so pedantic and so needy, and he's writing and rewriting and going over it, and everyone is just tired and just wants it to be done because
but he wants it to be done right.
He wants it to be done perfectly, and they think, no, Jakar, you've done a good enough job. Good enough isn't good enough, though. It needs to be perfect. Did you have a favorite little moment of Jakar running around with his head cut off like a chicken?
No, I think I like my favorite.
Rachel's cracking herself up. I don't even know what it is. Go, Power Rangers. I don't know what it is. Rachel's almost getting there. Can you guess what Rachel's trying to say? I speak Rachel, and I can already tell you it's the "go repress someone else" line from him to Londo as Londo is correcting him on his spelling. And that it took Londo literally like 2 seconds to find an error in his writing. Because of course Londo would do that. Of course, because Londo's that kind of guy. He's been bitching about how he wants to leave and that he's going to be dead soon so they could feed him to the Pakmara because this is going on so long.
Londo's complaints are on point as well. Like, I just feel like everybody's so in the groove. And that's because Lockley's not here.
Hey, she will be back. She'll return.
She'll be back next episode.
I did not think about Lockley once. I did not think about Lockley one time ever. Not once. Not a single moment did I think, where's Lockley? I didn't think about her. I didn't give her a single moment of my time. And I like Lockley. I'm a Lockley defender. And I didn't give a single fuck about her not being here.
You didn't even write in your notes to acknowledge her.
Why would I? She wasn't here to acknowledge. I got a good laugh out of Jakar in the middle of the night, ring-a-ding-dinging on Sheridan's door and leaving a little scroll on the ground with a little blue bow that he tied. And we actually do get an insert shot of Jakar walking down the corridor merrily with more scrolls, indicating that he's going to go to more people in the middle of the night. And we see in this very episode that many of the ambassadors hate being woken up in the middle of the night for some bullshit when it comes to the Declaration of Principles. So I just love the vivid, I have this vivid image in my brain of all of these other ambassadors in their PJs with their nightcaps on and a candlestick walking out being like, who's woken me? Why am I up so early? What is this, a little scroll? Oh, and they shake their fist in the air. Sheridan's accepting of the little scroll because he was already awake. You see, he just couldn't get this issue out of his head. This issue of a new race coming to them for aid. But before we even get to that, one of the things that's very fascinating about the Declaration of Principles and the League of Non-Aligned Worlds refusing to sign it is the League are treated like fools. We have talked about this a few times over, that they are treated as individuals, but also as a dumb mob mentality. Now the League have their individual votes and all of their voices are heard, but they are still played up as the dum-dums who need to be taught a lesson from our super smart human characters who are ever so wise and have better points of view than those idiot League of Non-Aligned World peoples. And Garibaldi says as much. I really loved the Garibaldi conversation with Sheridan because it's very much what Garibaldi would think of the world. He comes from a very cynical place. He has a depressed mind, as Byron calls it. And he looks Sheridan in the eyes and says to him in a matter of speaking, they don't know what they want. And if they do know what they want, they need to be shown that you can do all of these amazing things. And the most primal way for them to understand that is a show of force, is for you to use military might, is for you to step on in and clean up their messes, to just highlight that, yes, the Interstellar Alliance can do stuff.
Simply show them who's the daddy.
Show them who's wearing daddy's pants. And you're the one wearing daddy's pants. You can't wait 6 months from now to try and do that thing. You need to do it right now. And I don't know how to feel about this as a real world thing, because it makes perfect sense for Garibaldi to suggest this, because this is his character. He was the chief of security, now he's the chief of covert intelligence, or whatever his long title is. And he is a character that for a whole season had his brain turned around and rewired and just amplified this type of attitude within him to a degree that was hostile. And now we're utilizing it as a form of governing. And it does make you uneasy in a way that a group that wants to be peaceful, that wants to install cultural understanding and wisdom and enlightenment and basically be the Federation, that a reality of that is it doesn't happen that way. It doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow process, and you have to feed them what they already know. And what they already know is force, is you guiding them and dragging them to where they need to go, because they are children and we are the adults. What are your thoughts on that, Rachel?
It's a parroting of the idea of the older and the younger races that we saw fed through the Fallen and Shadow stuff. So it makes a lot of sense. And it also aligns with things that the show has had to say about mentorship and growth and leadership. So it all just kind of slots in and adds up.
Do you think that it is possible to build towards what they are wanting?
Yeah, I agree with them that you can't erase the problems by just going, we all say that they're problems and we're going to stop them now, right? The world doesn't work like that. And I think Babylon 5 is truthful in its optimism, because we see that the world that they're aiming to create does eventually sort of come about.
Through trial and error and fire and destruction and pain and
but
love
it is
and growth.
the overall trend is upwards, not that everything goes smoothly. Because the universe, essentially, like our galaxy and all of these races that are in it, need to learn these lessons so that they can achieve this. It's not that this is inherently something that we can do because we are creatures and able to communicate. That does not mean that we can achieve peace. We've learned specifically from Jakar that there are certain things that you have to be willing to accept and do in order for peace to happen.
Sacrifice. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and it is something that idealistically you wish that it could be not the way that Garibaldi and Delenn and later on Sheridan tried to enforce, because they, to succeed at what they want,
have to go against what they want.
And to step on other people to go to where they need to go, because this isn't just a case of they treat the League of Non-Aligned World races as inferior, because in the end we do see that through this process they stop a horrible atrocity and injustice that is being perpetuated by the Drazi, and it just highlights that what the Alliance stands for needs to actually start happening, because we can't let stuff like this go on anymore.
No.
We can't just turn a blind eye or not investigate this or really not
It's not these
address
problems
these
don't
systemic
matter.
issues. Yes.
Because both the Vorlons and the Shadows were not concerned with people as individuals, right?
They're just concerned with themselves.
They were concerned with their principles so much that they forgot that they affected people. Whereas the Interstellar Alliance is focusing in on individuals and how principles can help those individuals.
Unless they're telepaths. And that's where the conversation comes in of, to get to where they want, they need to step on other people to get there, and that's the telepaths. Garibaldi raises the point that we need spies, we need intel and information.
Everybody else is doing it, so we better do it too.
We don't have the Psi Corps being in charge of how we use telepaths, and so we should use them for covert black ops, shady shit. And
we should use them because we can.
And the fact is, the Interstellar Alliance, the three people that are at the top of it, one of them is a military guy, a tactician, a soldier, a captain who's just won a war. This is the post-war general who's now a politician style thing. You have Delenn, who is, yes, a religious leader, but also somebody who is military-minded as well. I mean, she was there in the Earth-Mbryo War, as well as all these others. And you have Garibaldi, a cop.
I know that you said and others, but I do not want to overlook her being such an important player in the Minbari Civil War.
Oh, yes. And Garibaldi is a cop who is driven by that need to protect and be paranoid at all times. And he's always had bigotry against telepaths. Yes. And he proudly says that, like, hey, you know me, I'm not a big fan of them, but they have a use. We can use them. And it's so telling that they want to use the telepaths strictly from a strategic point of view and a militaristic point of view. And they don't consider any other alternatives. They don't consider any other methods. They don't. It's not something that's ever raised, because why would you look at them like that? They were made to be weapons. We got to use them that way.
We know this, And they've
always been used like
throws
that.
up that they said that they wanted to work.
Yeah, not like
And
this.
it's just like,
you dummy.
what do you mean? Like that? Why do you assume that that's the only thing that they want to use?
Because that's also what Sheridan assumes, because telepaths aren't people, they're telepaths. They are their abilities, they are their gifts, they are their
which is what
extra senses. That's
Lita
why they're...
points to, and Byron disagrees with.
And...
Well, one of the things.
And Sheridan says, well, we agreed so that they could be in the back pocket because we know there's a war coming and they're going to be a resource for us later. And again, highlighting that Sheridan doesn't look at this group of pacifists, this group of civil rights people, these people who don't want to be enslaved to the systems of being a telepath in the way that they are currently being used and abused. Sheridan doesn't consider any of that. He just looks at them as something to use later.
Michael, we know there is a crisis coming between normals and telepaths. I let them aboard, figuring we could keep them in our back pocket until they were needed.
And all I'm saying is let's move them to the front pocket instead of the back pocket. Let's put them to use now instead of waiting to the last moment. If they want to work, I say great, here's a chance.
One of the first issues that the Interstellar Alliance has to address is this planet that is being attacked and being dictated and ruled by raiders. They are getting all of these resources and everything about them stripped away twice a year from raiders. And they call out for help and say, we want to join your alliance, but we need your protection. We need your assistance. And that is a wonderful thing to present as a problem for them to solve at the very beginning. And how they handle that is going to give us so much to go on in the season to come, because what are the choices that this Interstellar Alliance makes? And the choice is send every one of our fucking warships over there.
Show of force.
And Delenn is Miss Terror is a great tool. Gotta use that. And what else are they supposed to do, though? They're having to fight against a group that isn't one yet you negotiate with. This isn't, it's this other foreign power that's these are bandits, these are pirates, these are profiteers. They don't care about morality. They only care about getting what's theirs. So, sure, send in an entire armada there to blow them out of the sky. It means nothing. But I do love that the Interstellar Alliance is just choosing violence as their first course of action. It's just like, yeah, violence, that will do. Send our ships there. Fuck them up real good. And that spirals out into this big, grand conspiracy about the planet and who's helping the raiders and what is really going on with everyone. And Rachel, could you tell us a bit about all of that and how do you feel?
I feel conflicted that they succeed because of Byron.
Byron. But let's go back to this planet and its problems. What is the big conspiracy, the bigger play here?
Well, the bigger play is that the pirates aren't just pirates, they're Drazi-funded pirates.
The raiders have returned with their pizza ships, their slice of pizza ships. We have not missed them. Remember in season 1 when they were the bane of our existence?
Yeah, I didn't want to acknowledge it.
Yeah, the Drazi are funding them for what? What recourse? What is their motive here?
Well, it keeps the outer worlds down so that they don't become a threat to the Drazi, but also because they get a cut of the profits.
And the Drazi are blameless. We didn't shoot those planets. We didn't send our forces there. We have no idea.
It wasn't us.
they're on the outer reaches and of no interest or value to the Drazi, so we can't be implicated in anything. It's those raiders. You know how raiders are.
Raiders be raiding.
They tried to blow up Babylon 5 that one time. You remember that? Yeah, they could do that to a planet. Not us. We have morality. We have honor. I really... There was a detail that Jakar offhandedly said about having to possibly write the declaration in a language that the Drazi understands.
The universe through us.
Which is a really cool cultural idea for people. Instead of being it all about the I want or I'm owed this, it's this, the universe works through myself.
Yeah, it's neat.
And
something that they've touched on before.
And it goes with what they're doing here of, well, we're just letting things flow through us and we're just grabbing this, but not in the way that it looks like we want it or we're owed it. It's really neat how they tie that comment of Jakar's into their strategy of the Drazi. All of this conflict that is actually caused by the Drazi gets alleviated and eventually solved because of Byron standing menacingly in a corridor and just picking up thoughts out loud, because it is Garibaldi's whole entire thing about I will just talk to the telepaths because it is time to use them as that valuable resource. Sheridan has given the thumbs up apparently to this, and so Garibaldi marches down to Byron's weird little group. And we've only had Byron the one time, now this is the second, and I did delight in the premise of Byron in the episode of having him talk to Garibaldi. Garibaldi, who is a very prickly character, fast talker, no nonsense, paranoid, anxious little man, talk to Byron, who is this pseudo-intellectual psychic who doesn't want to play by the rules, but we don't know what he wants at this point. And I just like the character combination here because both of these men are pig-headed, but in completely different ways, in which I walk away from the scene not agreeing with either of them, and so I'm sitting here with my dick in my hands going, well, what am I supposed to do? Because they both make valid points, but both of them are assholes. So what do I do with that? What do you think?
100% they're both assholes. And I think you are meant to understand both of them, but I don't know if the show wants you to agree with either of them. Once again, the middle ground is where it's at.
Before we even get Byron, there's this whole cavalcade of strangeness that Garibaldi has in front of him. And is this supposed to be this way? Is it supposed to be ominous and creepy and cultish, or is it supposed to just be abstract and otherworldly, and Byron operates in a different way because he's a telepath?
I think it's meant to be culty. I think there's just a few too many things that evoke that, but it doesn't line up with the actor's performance.
Byron's?
Yeah.
Doesn't it? I don't know what his performance is. I love Robin Atkin Downes in general, but he is off the chain in this. Before Garibaldi gets to even look Robin Atkin Downes in the eyes, he has to talk to the other freaks, and they're so arrogant that they won't talk to him with their words because.
But they're not talking to him through his mind. They're just talking to each other through their minds. So it's still just like, no, you are less than. And Byron repeats that sentiment of like, we're not humans, we're better.
Yeah. Okay. So the telepath colony, from what was presented in the first episode of the season, and from what Byron will get into when he rips Garibaldi a new arsehole, is that they want to be free and have this pacifist lifestyle and to be treated equally. And yet we are shown them to be menacing, cult-like, scary, honestly, because Garibaldi, we know him at least, and we understand his brand of fuckboy, like of his brand of he's a filthy cop. And it's so disconcerting to me that what should be a group of civil rights activists, a group of people who are wanting equality, are presented to us as the ominous ones and not the CIA guy over here.
No, it's just like the spy is on equal footing here with the activist. That's not typically the vibes that we get.
Garibaldi is a man with a plan. He has it all laid out in his brain, but since...
I think this is like why he hates telepaths, because he's like, oh, my tricks don't work on you.
You can't talk your way out of a thing with a telepath, according to Garibaldi, because they will just read your mind and just counter you before you even say anything aloud. And that must be one of the most angering things for someone like Garibaldi, who constantly talks his way into getting what he wants. We also know Garibaldi uses force as he's trying to implement in this story, but he is a man of words as well, most often. And so Byron cutting through that like butter, getting right past the formalities, already is a great way to get Garibaldi off kilter, because Garibaldi is in no element. He has no cards in his hand now that he can play.
Do you think Byron unsettles him more than Harlan Ellison, the computer?
Sparky?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were going to ask Bester, but okay. Sure. Does Byron unsettle him more than the snarky computer that he was mildly annoyed at in that one episode of season 3? Great question. I don't know.
I wanted to go with something original, Ryan.
You got me. You did it. You did it. Congratulations.
Everybody knows about the beef between Garibaldi and Bester.
But
any podcast can talk about that.
But is Byron the new Nagrath? That's the question. Is he psychic Nagrath? What do you think of Byron in this interaction with Garibaldi and the stuff he says?
I like anybody who can shut Garibaldi up. I enjoy that scene. I'm like, I don't enjoy Byron being Byron, but I enjoy the consequences of it in that scene.
Could you articulate what is Byron being Byron? Because I think everyone knows what that is, but I still think we have to talk about it.
As soon as he said that, I was like, I should have been prepared to answer that question. But I'm not. I think it comes from the internal arrogance that Byron has that is definitely brought to screen through the performer and the dialogue. That's working in tandem, I would say. That's a big part of it. The hair also adds to the arrogance and to the confidence.
He has Christ-like hair.
Yes.
And
yes, he does.
Robin Atkindown still has that hair to this very day. He ain't cutting his fucking hair.
Well, he is if he's kept it at that length.
Maybe not. Maybe he's just naturally stops at a certain point. That happens. That happens to people. That happens to guys. Come on, I've had long hair and it kind of stopped at a certain point. Rachel's giving me this. Why are you giving me that look?
No, because...
Look, I'm not saying that Robert Atkin Dance has never had his hair trimmed. This is not the conversation
Thank
I'm saying, but you make it that way by twisting these words around. And,
No,
you're
but
Byron-ing me right now.
You're different because you have curly hair. So it is always harder to tell when your hair has grown because it needs to complete like a full curl cycle before you really notice it.
You can't.
And when it gets longer, your curls get less tight.
Well, you've cracked the code and went through my curls to the depressed mind. Byron being Byron to me is JMS.
Just unloading?
Not just unloading, but it's him trying to cram in as much as possible in a quick amount of time. Byron says so much, so quickly, and you have to take a moment to process it. But the problem is, and this is, I think, deliberate, because he does have a cult leader vibe. The aesthetics are there, and some of the talking points are there. But he says so much so quickly that you have to accept that he's probably saying something of worth, because he's also using a very flowery, eloquent way of doing it. But he's saying nothing a lot of the time, other than just asserting dominance, because that's what he does with Garibaldi. He just dominates this bold man right in front of the rest of his gaggle of freaks. And while he's doing that, he's got this woman wrapped around his waist, and he's stroking her and touching her.
It's like, this doesn't even require my full attention to dress you down like this, Garibaldi.
And since we...
And you thought you were hot shit.
You never enter a situation until you've gone over it and over it 100 times. Worked out what you will say, what the other person will say, how you'll respond. It's quite remarkable. And extremely depressing.
You, in particular, Rachel,
yes,
like watching and listening to documentaries and interviews and stuff about cults and weird organized religions and whatever else.
Hey, we both enjoyed Wild Wild Country.
Sure. And within a cult, you have to have, at least from my understanding, and within a lot of them, there has to at least be a
enigmatic leader.
Sure. I was going to say a seed of truth.
Oh, yeah.
So that people
the best
will
lies have a bit of truth in them.
And that is what Byron is all about, correct? He is saying all of these things that are factually true, but he is my counter to this. And I'm just want to stick it, we could talk about it whether further down the line or just within this episode, but usually with the cult, you also need, like, the sinister things.
Yeah.
Or the things that are drawing over the line, but
the fact that they're in, like, we know that the other races and their telepaths don't have these certain rules. But I find it hard to believe that all of them are walking around without any walls up. And they're just going, okay, if you're thinking it and I can hear it, it ain't my fault. It ain't my fault. If you're broadcasting with Byron, he seems to think of it as, if you're thinking it and I can hear it, it's like you're walking around with a speaker blaring music.
Yeah.
Whereas the rest of us think of it as we're walking around with headphones in.
And how can we control our fucking thoughts? But then the flip is, well, us telepaths have to do that all the fucking time to make you comfortable. And what do we get in return for that? Nothing other than more demands.
Yeah.
And the thing that really gets to me is there's not enough in the Byron plot, and I can't wait to see more episodes to prove me wrong, because I want to be proven wrong. But in my overall recollection, a lot of the quote-unquote sinister stuff is purely aesthetic. It is the look of the actors, their clothing, the fact that he has women draped around him, and he just has an arrogance.
Yeah.
But is that really the same as an actual fucking cult?
No, and it's that weird zone that it ends up falling into of it. Like, it looks like a cult. It quacks like a cult. But it's not a cult.
It just has an annoying man in charge of it. That's what it is. It just has a guy that I want to punch because he is so prissy. But that shouldn't negate the message. But we open the series against them because they're coded in such a way where you don't want to side with them because they're gross.
Oh, fuck off.
And yet, what they want and how they say it and what
very reasonable.
It's all fair. But
like,
the show is against them.
What it's saying is more in line with the civil rights activism and that analogy that you were talking about. But you don't want to be on their side too much because then you won't be on the side of the characters that we know and we love. And the show wants you to be on Sheridan's side.
But he's a prick.
He's a prick!
He's a prick this whole season, basically, and they really embrace that, and I love it, but it is...
Goatee Sheridan's a fucking asshole.
You do get a hint, a sliver of the real sickness that's in Byron's ideology, which is he still sees the same thing that Bester sees, which is they are mundanes, lesser than, and we are better. And we are better. So why must we serve them?
Homo superior.
We actually get told how the other societies, the other cultures, telepaths work. We get the Centauri embrace it like this, and the Mbryo embrace it like that, and you guys don't have any, and we did this to them. And Byron still looks at it through that prism of us versus them.
Yeah. It is... He's still programmed in a way to think the core is mother, the core is father. But he's rejecting the Psy-core is that, and he's just like, I can make my own.
You know who thinks of telepaths and quote-unquote mundanes as people that could get along and we shouldn't think of them as whether one is superior and one is lesser than? Do you know the character that has consistently been like that throughout the whole entire series, and yet they don't really get their hands involved in this actual story arc? Do you know the character?
Franklin?
It's Franklin. Franklin doesn't give a fuck about this, like the way that Byron and Bester and he just sees people.
People are people.
People are people. That's what the Mbryo figured out. The Centauri figured it out in their own way as well. That's culturally relevant to how they operate. And that's the flaw of Byron within this episode is even if
he's still perpetuating
the
division.
lie. Yeah, the division. Because even if you want to do gymnastics to leap and dive and duck away from the obvious red flags that Byron has that are baked in from purely aesthetic reasonings. Because let's be honest, if they gave Byron to us and he didn't look the way he looks, he didn't have the sex cult around him, and yet also we call him a sex cult, no evidence of that.
No!
It's just purely that they just have a vibe. It's all vibes.
It's all vibes. All
and
skin deep.
It's all deliberate. And I can't, again, really looking forward to talking more about his story to see it unfold in a way that I hope challenges my ongoing issues with it. Because currently, I'm just throwing my hands up in the air going, this is a classic case of a show wants me to think a certain way, and so they're manufacturing it in a way so it's more palatable.
Reverse engineering a little bit.
Yeah, they design Byron to be a very loathsome character, but won't get too deep, but they also want me to feel for him. That's always the tug of war with Byron is, do you want me to loathe him or love him?
Yeah,
You're not doing it both ways successfully.
Are we meant to trust him with Lisa?
Can we talk about the sit down scene?
Do we? Like, I know we have to, but I don't want to. Like, I feel already agitated.
I'm okay. I'll say my piece on this one specific part very quickly because I think that you may have more to say on it because when we were watching it, you got very heated about it. So Lita comes in. She needs to talk to Byron, do some convincing, get some info. Blah blah blah.
She's been sent there by Garibaldi.
Yeah, she's been sent there by Garibaldi, and then she's blocking,
manipulates all the shit out of her,
and her brain is blocking off everyone because she's gotten to that point where she doesn't want anyone to come in even in the slightest, which says a lot about her character. But she walks in there and she is going to have a regular, again, what should be a regular scene. But Byron has this whole diatribe about that you're a lackey and you run around for them and you're a pet. And sit, Lita, sit. And she proceeds to walk over to try and sit on this chair, and he grabs it or kicks it away and like yells in a very, and again, Robin Atkin Downes is actually a good actor. Everyone who hates Byron, you have to look at the difference between the performance and what the character is. Because Robin Atkin Downes, I have always defended this. I think he plays Byron perfectly.
Yep.
I think it's the writing that makes it a little bit odd. But fucking Robin Atkin Downes yells in this pitch perfect, squeamish, prissy, almost weirdly aggressively masculine tone. Like he goes, "No, don't!" It's very uncomfortable, and it really makes it tense. But then he has this whole fucking point about, I didn't ask, I didn't say please, you just did it. And then he proceeds to do the thing again, and he says, please. And my whole entire thing on this, and maybe I'm just being, very hard-lined because Byron is he just gets my hackles up, but he's doing this to this lady, and I just can't, and with all the stuff that we've already just
She's
said.
been through enough.
With all the stuff we just said about Byron, I can't help but look at this as like a pickup artist.
Yeah.
Weird man who is playing her and trying to program her to believe in a certain thing in a way that is very...
Everybody else has treated you like this, but I'm not going to.
It just inherently feels different when he's doing it to
skeevy.
to a woman.
Yes.
And it makes him come across as a creep. But that's my opinion on it. He comes across as a manipulative pervert creep man. But with everything I just said before, I still think it's kind of valid to be like, is this really something that you would say, oh yeah, that's the act of a creep? I don't.
No. It's just that...
Because he's trying to prove a point.
With so much of JMS's writing, the compass is pointing north. It's always pointing north, and you've learned to trust it. But with Byron, it's not. It gets completely thrown off. It doesn't know where it's going. What is it doing? And it is probably the one storyline the most where I'm like, it's just fumbled. he fumbles the ball, and when you know what it was meant to be, we know that originally Lita was meant to be Ivanova, right?
Yeah, Ivanova was supposed to be in this storyline.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it would use her telepath
yes, but still with Byron.
Yeah, and he's going to be yet another tragic, long-haired man that dies. And
Yep.
And he was supposed to be like 3 episodes instead of like the 9 he gets, or however many.
And it's just like, he really didn't know how to patch this one in. And it feels very season 1.
Yeah. Okay.
In a way, but like, it's worse than season 1. It just feels like he's like, I'll circle back to that idea. And then it needed to be in there for other things that he wanted, but he hadn't figured out the middle.
With story arcs in this series, we have always understood what the point was, or what a point of it was, what it was going for, and how it did that. Byron is the anomaly here, in which even after all of these rewatches, other than my gut reaction of saying, I hate it, thanks, I hate it, it makes me angry, but why does it do that? How is it doing it? And what is the actual intention here? I don't know. Hopefully this podcast will help bring out some more understanding between the two of us.
It'll definitely pace us out, because we usually just try and power through this chunk of season 5.
Yeah, Byron is you never forget Byron, but you try to
remember Byron.
Lita pours her soul out to Garibaldi. And he's a fucking numpty.
Wow, Rachel is really upset. She said numpty. She only brings that out when it's a special occasion of getting annoyed at someone. Yeah.
But we haven't gone into why is Lita in such a dark place in this episode.
Man, I can't.
Why would she be perhaps a little bit more perceptive or receptive to Byron?
Yeah.
And his idea of how telepaths should be treated.
How she should be treated.
And how, maybe she deserves better. Maybe she deserves better.
I can't believe I forget this story beat. Each episode, each time we revisit this episode and what unfolds with Lita happens, it's almost like it's the first time again, and yet also happiness of being able to revisit it, because it is such a fucking big swing to take, and it's one that I always like, but it's also something that is so out of left field for the show that it
just goes for it.
Yes, it does. So Lita is called to Dr. Franklin's abode. No, he's
Med lab.
I know. That's where he lives. I know he doesn't actually live there. We've been to his apartment, his quarters, like once when he was shirtless, and that's been about it. But we go to the med lab because
shirtless Franklin.
Oh, shirtless Franklin. And then he's been shirted ever since. It's a real tragedy.
Ever since he got clean.
Yeah, ever since he got clean, real tragedy. But Franklin and Delenn have called Lita there because the Ranger has returned from this planet, and he has been gravely injured because of getting shot at by the Drazi and the Raiders and so on. And they need to know what this man knows. So Lita, please go over there and scan him. You're our friend. You'll do what we ask of you.
Also, you're a psycho. So
we're hiring you, yeah.
Yeah.
She's wearing her full little
uniform
with the badge. And Rachel, tell us all what happens next.
She's in his mind when he dies.
Well, she does get the information.
Yes, she does. She also succeeds. But she's reading his thoughts. So you can tell that she's figuring out the information. We're seeing things, blah, 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 blah. And then the guy appears next to her, above himself.
Yeah, across from her, next to himself, looking down.
And then they chat for a bit, and then like a door portal thing appears behind him, and he walks through. And then we kind of jump back to being focused more on MedLab, and Franklin's there.
Back to reality.
And it's like, he's dead.
Oh, Lita knows. That was so well put together. And you just went over the broad strokes of it, but there's so many fine details.
Visuals.
But it's all of these little details on top of each other.
Yeah.
We get for instance, when she gets the information from his mind, it's all first person. It's all POV of the ranger and these people talking to him. And it keeps cutting back to Lita.
She's living his memory.
And when we cut back to Lita, it's just a standard shot, low down. She's got the light. She's got a hand out. We've got the badge shining in the light. All of that. But once that starts to fade, we hear his voice, and there he is. And now we're shooting it like regular again, but he's there, standing there like a person, like that's physically supposed to be there, but he's not actually there. This is a mental manifestation. And she's communing with him in his mind as he's dying. And there's...
like, yeah, that would fuck somebody up. That would fuck you up.
And what were some of the choices made here that leapt out to you? Because there's so much happening in terms of the visuals and the audio and their performances as well.
The thing that I particularly appreciated was the CG on the portal and its lack of color. And it's
like white, like clouds.
Yeah, so it almost has this feeling of having a lack of depth and also going on forever. Like the sky does sometimes, where you're like, it's blue forever, but you know that it's not, but you know that there's stuff in between.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. And when he turns and he's wearing his range outfit, which is a pretty solid black and brown attire, it makes him pop against this whitish portal behind him.
It also avoids that sort of reading of, oh, he's going to heaven or hell.
But it also evokes it enough.
It evokes the idea of somebody passing and that being a transition, which is reinforced by a leader's statement of like, it appears like a door because I guess
the human mind can't comprehend anything other. And even the portal has that jump gate quality to it as well, which adds to the sci-fi-ness.
Like, okay, that's familiar to us.
To us, yes. The aesthetic of the show is blending with the fantasy.
Characters.
Yeah. Another thing that is a big deal is the audio and how it is used. It's mixed in a certain way. There's lack of noise and music. And so it feels intimate and personal.
Yes.
And so it makes it this crescendo of emotion without actually beating us over the head with said emotion from dramatic performances or swelling music or just things of that nature. It was so... This is probably one of the best made scenes of the series. This is probably one of the best made scenes of the series to communicate a really, really good idea of what it would be like if in this world of telepaths, something grand like this went on, how would you do that? How would you show that? And I think this is, for the time especially, and the budget they had, the best way they could have done it. Did you notice that the version of him looking down at himself, when he spoke, his mouth never moved?
Yes.
I never really paid attention to that before, I don't think. I think I've always just assumed, like, the tradition is when you're doing this type of sequence, they're talking out loud with their mouths.
Yeah, but it's in his mind.
Yeah, but
that's what I was like. I don't remember noticing that before, but that was my thought about it, of like, oh, well, he's speaking telepathically because Lita is in his mind.
It's always great that in the final moments of your story, you can still flesh out something that we, the person consuming your media, take as a given at this point. We know telepaths. We know all of the stuff they can do. And you don't need to keep introducing new facets to it. You could just ride what you've got.
No, but it's still building out the world.
Yeah, because
Still
it's alive.
introducing, yeah. And it's like, well, we didn't know this thing, and now we need to know this thing. Or these characters have learnt this, so the audience gets introduced to something new.
And it's something that shouldn't be. Her being able to look at this moment that no one should be able to actually witness. Something that, you know, through the dawn of time, we've all wondered. What is happening when the person dies? Like, what goes on? Is there something you see? Is there something that happens? Franklin, as a foundationalist, he talks about it with also being a doctor, with the reflected gods. They look away from you and you can see something in their eyes. That's very human nature of wanting to define and get a meaning out of
Something that's undescribable.
And this is a way of using the telepaths to actually see that. And Lita talks about it with Garibaldi. She says it's something we should never see, and it ruins you. The more
it takes a part of you. And she uses the word soul, and Garibaldi's like, I believe in souls.
Well, whatever, Garibaldi. Either way, it makes me feel very bad.
Clearly, you haven't discussed the Soul Man with Delenn, because she played with some souls.
And we also get that callback sensation to Third Space, because the Vorlons created telepaths, and Lita is a modified telepath because of the Vorlons. But in Third Space, we got to hear from Lita through this programmed way of being that the Vorlons got so arrogant with themselves that they built the jump gate to Third Space because they wanted to transcend and
meet God,
be better than God, that they thought that they could do that. And here's an example of that arrogance. They created beings who can do something that perhaps only God should do and see, if there is a God.
No one is supposed to know except the person who is dying. When it happens, you see it as a door opening. Because there's no other way for the human mind to interpret what you're seeing. You feel the other person slipping away, and for a second, it catches you. It pulls you in, and a part of your soul goes with him.
We are doing our spotlight section now, Rachel, that part of the show that we do in each given episode of our Babylon 5 coverage. We talk about an actor or actress that appeared in the given episode, go over their performance, their career, any interesting pieces of trivia we have picked up along the way, and any other things we want to discuss. And we are talking about a man that we were just talking about his sequences,
Mhm.
the Ranger. And the Ranger does not have a name, he's just Ranger.
Just a title.
But he is played by Bart Johnson. And I wanted to do him for the spotlight. We'll having a bit of a round table earlier about who would we do, because there's not that many guest stars, but there's also there are people here. And I thought Bart Johnson needs to be someone to discuss, because although he's not given much to do, and for most people out there, you may not even consider his performance to even go beyond what you just saw on the screen. Like, once it's done, it's probably not lingering in your brain because it is so small. But he had a very difficult job, and I think he excelled at it.
The fact that he is forgettable is a testament to his performance. Because if it wasn't played right, it would be hammy, it would be weird, it would be ridiculous.
Awkward. And he's forgettable in the sense that his role is is very minute.
Yes, but he's not a guest star that you're looking back on the season and being like, oh, that Ranger. It's just he just seamlessly fits into the show and into the world. And that's a testament to him as an actor and also to the writing.
With what he was given, in the confines of it, if we're going to measure on the curve of things and look at the context of it all, I think he gives a spectacular performance, one of the greats, because we got to see him as the Ranger, and he was a typical rinky-dink Ranger, like, hello there, I'm a good man, we're going to help you. But when we had that scene of him dying, the vocal performance was fragile. It was also knowing. It's innocent and naive, but also wise beyond years, comprehending what is going on and yet doesn't want it, but also wanting it. It's if you watch it,
he's not fighting death,
but he also doesn't want it. It's really well delivered, and that audio mixing that they do really helps boost it in a way that all comes together in a neat little package. But I thought he when he had those shots on his face, and like I said, I never really noticed that his lips weren't moving when he was in that sequence. But they aren't. It's just all in his eyes. It's all in those eyes and the brow and the way that he crumples his face. You don't need him to even speak to get across all of the complex emotions that this man would feel. I never doubted for a second that this is real. This is such an abstract and extravagant sequence to throw into the episode. And you said it, if you don't have the right person, this could be ridiculous, this could be absurd, and you wouldn't
feel for Lita nearly as much.
I felt bad for this man who we didn't know. We don't know anything about, let alone his name. And when he turns and he accepts death and he walks off and he zoops into a very funny CGI effect, I can look past the funny CGI effect because Bart Johnson, he went 110% for a role that is minor in the most minor of ways possible. And we went over this a lot when we covered Space Above and Beyond with some of the lead actors who would get less, like the guy who plays Wang. But a sign of a true actor is every part is important.
Yeah.
So, have you seen Bart Johnson in anything? He has a good resume of work, but have you seen him in anything?
Well, are we saving his big thing or just going straight for it?
Whatever you feel is the answer to my question that suits you best, because I'll just give it away right now. Sadly, I have not seen this man in anything in particular. Now, he is a classic character actor guy. He's just a that guy actor.
Yeah.
He has been in many things, and I've probably seen him in a bunch in like
Watch
one
the
and done.
Tremors TV show.
I was going to bring that up as a special trivia point, but
sorry.
because it is important. He is in the Tremors TV show, which is a very great show. If you have not watched the Tremors TV show, you're doing yourself a grave disservice. It is worth the watch. It was only a one-season wonder, but boy, was it wonderful. But he is that man who is good-looking, and he just pops in and out of whatever show or movie as a small part. Just like in this.
I haven't seen him in that much. I know a lot of things that he was in. Like, he was in Diagnosis Murder, the Clueless TV show, Daddy Day Camp, NCIS and NCIS LA, and The Client List.
Most recently, he was in an episode of Quantum Leap.
Do you remember what The Client List was?
Was that the one about a sex worker? What was that? Sorry, yes, it was. Thank you.
Yeah, the Jennifer Love Hewitt, I believe.
After Ghost Whisperer, she had the client list,
yeah.
and he's in a few episodes of the client list.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I didn't get a chance to look up because I can't remember if he's the dipshit husband that leaves her.
He's only in 3 episodes, so that could be the case.
Or one of the clients.
Looking at his career, he's reminiscent to me of the guy who plays Warren Keffer, Robert Rustler.
Yeah.
Where when he's a pretty boy, and so he does some of those generic shows like we just listed, but also he does some camp cult films that you may not have heard of, but when you kind of look at them, you go, "Oh yeah, I can see how you can be in something like Vamp You or things of that variety, like Evil Angel." They're not high-rated things, or The Cell 2, where you're handsome, but you aren't at that movie star level, so you will slot into
you'll take what you're
film.
offered.
Yeah, and they do a good job for what they do, but what is the big thing, Rachel?
Well, do you want to talk about his brothers first?
Rachel, you're stealing all of my trivia points.
Well,
you're stealing
brought
all
up the brothers, so I wanted to know if you wanted to do that before.
No, let's just keep following through on the things we know him from. So
Okay,
those are the things I know him from.
Zac Efron's dad in High School Musical.
He's Coach Bolton. Thank you. Coach Bolton. Now, I've never watched a High School Musical film in my entire life, and I don't plan on doing that anytime. So tell me a little bit about his role in those films. So one, does he sing?
Not that I remember. He does do some dancing, I think, but I don't think he has a song.
All right.
But I can't remember if I've watched the third one or not. So
that was the one that went to the cinema, right?
Yes.
So that's a feature, like that's a proper, he could have got Oscar nominated.
Mm-hmm. He could have, but sadly he didn't. He's fun. He's good. He sells it.
Yeah, what's his character like in that? So I imagine he's a big jock, buff, alpha male type.
Yeah. And he's just like, Troy, like, why do you want to sing and dance? Because you're great at basketball, and I love basketball, and you love basketball. So why do you want to do anything that's not basketball?
There's 16 minutes left in this game, guys. There's only 16 minutes left in the season. And for the seniors on this squad, guys, we've only got 16 minutes left in a Wildcat uniform. So make them count.
Bart Johnson is a man who has connections, family, and marriage. He is married to Robin
Lively.
Okay.
Blake Lively's older sister, so his brother-in-law.
With Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah.
But put a gun against my brain right now. I didn't even know that Blake Lively had famous, like, fellow relatives within the industry. Apparently she does. I had a little research on that, and she does. It's her sister and some other folks, but Blake Lively, I never watched Gossip Girl, so Blake Lively lives in this realm of like Amber Heard and a couple of others of like Alice Eve, where it's like pretty blonde lady that exists, and Hollywood tried to tell me that I should care about them, and then they stopped being in movies for a little while, but they still exist in the realm of either they had a big show, or they one big thing, or a couple big things, or they're just very attractive. And I don't mean to sound dismissive of that, because there's many male actors like that. Hence, what's that joke of like all of the lead actors in American Horror Story and they all look like the same fucking dude? And it's like, could you tell me who they are and what they do? It's like, no, but I know the vibe of each one of them.
A video, I think, from a South Korean video production like place. My vibe was they were kind of like the South Korean version of The Cut.
The YouTube channel, The Cut? Okay.
Yeah. Where they are trying to get all of these South Koreans to tell them if like who these people are or if they're different. And it's like they do one round where it's basically just all the different Chris's and they can't tell them apart.
Oh yeah, it's like all the Chris Hemsworths and Chris Evans.
Yeah.
So Bart Johnson, his mother is actually a person we should start with first. So his mother, I don't know if you know this, if you looked into this. No, I know you have the brothers ready to go.
I have the brother-in-law, yeah.
Oh, Ryan Reynolds.
That's what I got.
Oh, wow, I've done the deeper dive, it seems. So his mother is a makeup and hair person, and she is still working, although at least working recently, 2021. And she is in big and small projects, and some of them overlap with her son's films. I mentioned Vamp You. She did Vamp You, but she's done things like Crocodile Dundee in Los Angeles. She did Ed TV. She did The One, which is a film made by James Wong, who did Space Above and Beyond, one of the writers of that. She did Lethal Weapon 4 as a film. She did Dante's Peak, Michael, starring John Travolta. She did Assassins, starring Sylvester Stallone and Antonio Banderas. She did the Free Willy movies. She's done Maverick. She's done big and small, many roles in many films, I should say.
Many sizes of production.
Her alias name or her other working name is Charlene Chalk, which is fun. But Bart Johnson has two brothers, Adam Johnson and Brad Johnson. Now, they vary in their acting realm. So I do believe it is Adam Johnson is even more of a that guy character actor than Bart. Like, he is a guy that you have seen in something. Like, he's a bit more wide, gruff, chiseled face, beard, hairline a bit different, but he's like, oh yeah, like that's the kind of guy where it's like, oh yeah, I've seen him be like a tough guy in a film. But the other brother, which is a fun sentence to say, he makes films that he is in.
Ooh.
Or he produces and writes them, and as well as some minor acting, but he was the one I looked up first in this strand, and he raised some flags for me, which is he does a lot of Christmas films. Christmas, and the mother does these Christmas movies.
Wait. I want to hit Bart's like top video. I think like the trailer was a Pure Flix film.
And then I looked at earlier in the career of these brothers, and there's Mormon related products, and the mum just recently did hairstyling for a Mormon-based thing. And I asked you before we recorded, hey, are they big into Christmas? I don't know enough about Mormons.
That's why you were asking me that.
And I could not find through my over or research if they're Mormons or just Christians or if they just like making these type of movies because, hey, you know, you make a buck making these type of movies. It's an industry making holiday films. But the last piece of trivia I have on Bart Johnson is
that he's not Bartholomew. That's not his name. That's not what Bart is short for.
What is it short for? Bartfree?
Barton.
Oh, that makes sense. Barton Fink. So
I'm pretty sure.
He was in the Tremors TV show.
Yes.
Which I like as a show. But one of the things I know it for, and one of the reasons I watched it other than I like Tremors, is Richard Biggs was in several episodes of that. He was like a doctor. Again, I do believe. It's been a little while, but I had to look if Bart Johnson, he's in one episode. I had to look if he was in an episode with Richard Biggs. Boy, is he in an episode with Richard Biggs. He is in that episode, and him and Richard Biggs, bam, bam, bam. And that was just shortly after this. So I don't know if... Because this is also, like, in Babylon 5, he's sharing scenes with Richard Biggs as well. It's just something to point out as a B5 connection. And it's always great when we find a Richard Biggs B5 connection, especially post Babylon 5, because he did have a rather interesting career, or a sadly short-lived one after B5, but it's still a great one, and it's always neat. But that there is our spotlight section. He's an interesting fellow, to say the least, and he really opened my eyes to some people that exist in the Hollywood system that have always been there. But look, did you know Robin Lively? She's in a bunch of shit too that I've seen her in. I went, oh, okay. I guess I should have known that you were the first, like, I think she's like the older sister to Blake.
Yeah.
So she's been there longer? Who knows, man? It's crazy how...
No, I knew that Blake Lively's, like, has a lot of family that's in the industry or like, around it.
If you had to rate Paragon of Animals, the Paragon of Animals, on a scale of Yum being bad and Yum being good, what would you rate it?
Yum. It's just fine. Like, it's not good, it's not offensive, but I feel like there's more negatives than positives, even though I really like the ideas of a lot of the stuff, but the execution of it just isn't here.
What are those negatives, if you just had to quickly sum them up that weigh it down to the point of it being a Yum?
Byron is a big one. Sheridan being a fucking asshole brings it down a bit as well.
He's too much of one for you?
The style of Garibaldi I don't particularly enjoy. It's very, very much in character, though.
I won't ask for anything ever again until next time. And then he gives a little wry smile.
Mm-hmm. And it's just a bunch of stuff that I don't particularly like. It's not stuff that's bad in a lot of cases, just stuff that I don't particularly enjoy. What is it for you?
I'm at a crossroads because this isn't on an episode I love watching. When I'm actually watching it, it was perfectly fine and serviceable. But it's one that I like talking about with you, and it has a lot of thoughtful things that gets the mind racing.
It's not a bad episode.
Yeah.
But it's not a good episode, which is why I ended up with just a very middling Yum.
So I land on that other side of the tracks to you with a Yum. Now, why is that? I would rather an episode that when I'm watching it, I'm okay with it. It's fine. It's serviceable. But if I pull at it and pull the yarn of it, it gets my mind and brain going and active. Rather than when we watch something like Hunter Prey, which does not do that, or There All the Honor Lies. This is actually one that challenges me. It makes me think. It makes me struggle with the way the world works, as well as the direction JMS goes with certain things in the season. So,
yeah,
this does tickle my fancy, and it's a sleeper hit in that way of I don't expect it to, and this won't be one at the end of the season I think we will even reference, but I have to give it those marks because it does go above.
Oh yeah, it's not a fail of an episode.
Well, it is on a scale if you give it a yum, because there's no half measures, no half yums. No yum and a halves here on the Yum Yum podcast. I'm sorry, Rachel, those are the rules. I didn't make them.
Yes, you did.
You don't have evidence of that. Where's your evidence? Where's your evidence?
You say
where's Rachel's
most
evidence?
episodes.
Yeah, just because I enforce it doesn't mean I made it. It happened on its own.
No, it didn't, right?
Okay, Rachel,
But you know what didn't happen on its own?
The script to next week's episode of Babylon 5?
On the next Babylon 5.
Episode 4. A View from the Gallery. Blue-collar maintenance workers Mac and Bo gain a new respect for the station officers when they become fly-on-the-wall eyewitnesses to command's actions during an alien attack.
Ooh, A View from the Gallery. What an episode. And we will be back next time to talk about that. So in the meantime, you have a few things to do, okay? Obviously, watch A View from the Gallery for yourself so you're caught up with our watch through of it. And if you want to contact us, if you want to hit us up with your thoughts on things that we have discussed here, or your opinions on the episodes themselves, you can email us over at
yumyumpod@gmail.com.
Or you can follow us on your social media of choice under YumYumPod or YumYumPodcast. We're very interactive on there. We post things on all of that regularly and like to just get into it. We share some funny stuff. We have some debates and some conversations. And if you have not rated and reviewed the podcast, it would be greatly, oh my God, I would not even just greatly appreciate it, but I would be wowed if you did that. It would mean so much to me and so much to Rachel that she can't even contain herself about how much it would mean to her. In fact, we record things on our Patreon about how awesome it is when we get reviews. That actually hasn't happened, but maybe it could. Who knows? We do have a Patreon in which we post lots of bonus content on there. Rachel, what is happening on the Patreon currently?
Currently, we are covering The Expanse, another sci-fi TV show.
Yes.
Just in case you don't know.
One episode at a time, fresh time eyes.
We are just talking random shit about random things, just giving our thoughts. And then we are making our way through another film franchise, which is
RoboCop. We're doing the RoboCop film franchise, including the remake/reboot that was from 2014, starring Samuel L. Jackson as the Fox News type character. And that is so much going. I mean, oh my lord, we also have a group Discord over there on the group Patreon, on the Patreon that has a group Discord. There's, oh my god, I'm speechless with all the stuff that's going on. So support us over there if you have the means to do so. But we better skedaddle. We better leave. We better run out of the room real quick, or Jakar will come in here and teach me not just how to speak and spell, but he will thump his chest and grab some food and say, "Good eating to you, Mr. Sliwinski." But he'll say Sliwinski with a Q in there, which it doesn't have. And I'll have to correct him, and he'll tell me, "Go repress someone else."